Hello, everyone. I am Dale,
And I'm Brit.
and this is a toast of the Atypical. On this episode, we have quite a drink here. Um, both drinking kind of a purple potion.
Ooh, good word.
Ooh, it is. It is a good word. It's a good look too. I actually was really surprised. I'm gonna try and
What is this?
show it to the camera.
A drunk witch?
It's just
Is
called
that
a
what it's
drunk
called?
witch.
It's very
I don't know if
purpley.
it's showing up great in the
Yeah.
color or not, but it's like a really cool purple color drink. We have not tasted it yet. What was it? Vodka, blue carousel, grenadine, and lime something.
Yeah, it was
Sprite,
supposed to be
but
Sprite, but we don't have any.
we don't have
so
that shit in the
lime
house.
seltzer it is.
Yeah, lime seltzer. So the reason that we're drinking a drunk witch is this is our another Halloween special. This is our second Halloween special
This is, our
for the month of October. And our topic, because it's a very common Halloween costume, I think. At least I don't know what the kids these days dress up like, but
We have two kids. You know what they dress up as.
that's true. Superheroes. But witches,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the witch trials, is what we're going to get into
Yep.
tonight. We're both pretty tired right now. It's kind of late. It's our second or third night up late. And
Third. We
third
were up
night
late Friday night
up
and
late.
last night.
We're old and we can't hang anymore.
Yeah.
We're struggling, but we're gonna try and muster up some energy for this one. So, I guess let's go with a little sip of our
let's
our
try
potion here,
All right.
our witch bitch drink.
Which bitch?
Ooh, it tastes like a freeze pop.
Yes.
It tastes like a purple freeze pop.
It does. It's surprising.
Ooh, shit.
Yeah.
Shit's
It's
gonna
good.
get weird with this
I
drink.
normally don't like grape flavored
Yeah.
things or like purpley
I was not
stuff.
expecting a grape flavor.
Neither was I. I was gonna say that it's
What
got
the hell
more,
in this tastes like grape? Nothing.
I don't know.
Unless blue carousel somehow. Am I even saying that right?
Probably not.
I don't know. Either way, it's pretty good. I actually target the purple ice pops. I like them.
I don't dislike the purple ice pops. I hate purple everything else. Grape Jolly Ranchers, grape lollipops, grape literally anything else.
That's actually really good. I might not have to switch over to beer tonight.
Wow.
Wow. Ooh,
All
and
right.
the coaster didn't just echo the entire table. So we're
a lot
going in
of-
the right direction on this
we've
one
had
so
a lot
far.
of trial and error in this podcast
A
series.
lot. Yeah, but
Speaking of trials.
oh shit.
Oh, look at that
Oh.
segue.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into the witch trials here.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about witch hunts, the trials, a lot of the lead up to it, and some surprising things. So
Yeah, so a little bit of just a quick definition, I guess, of it before Britt gets into the history of it in the early time frame. Witch hunts were just searches or hunts and trials of people who were suspected to be practicing witchcraft, and it doesn't necessarily mean women. It was men as well. It seemed like the population of women were targeted a little bit more than the men, and we'll get into some of the reasons for that later in the episode here. But it was a person's collaboration with the devil through the use of magic, and it was actually developed as early as the 13th century, which Britt will get into here shortly, from Christian theologians. It was a very religious, I guess the witchcraft was anti-religion, Satanism seen as, and things like that. So
yeah,
we'll break it down into two different time frames. First is going to be the early modern witch hunts.
Yep.
Britt's going to talk about those, and I'll talk about more modern stuff. So if you want to jump into that.
Yeah. So the early modern witch hunts, the time frame is from 1400 to 1782. There's conflicting information on how many people were killed, but some sources say 40 to 60,000, and others have a total death rate as up to 100,000 at the maximum. Prosecutions for the practice of witchcraft reached their high point between 1560 and 1630. during the Counter-Reformation and European Wars of Religion. Some regions of the world burned the convicted at the stake. And like Dale said, about 80% of them were women, and most often they were over the age of 40.
Right.
So dating back to the medieval times, mainstream Christianity actually vehemently denied the existence of witches and witchcraft, basically condemning it as a pagan superstition.
Okay.
And then Thomas Aquinas came around in the 13th century, and he was responsible for a big shift in the Christian doctrine. And then certain theologians began to accept the possibility of collaboration with the devil, resulting in a person obtaining certain, like, real supernatural powers.
Interesting. Okay.
So then, there are doctrines and information dating back prior to this 1400 time, but the witch hunts really didn't start till then.
Mm-hmm.
So, in 1233, a papal bull by Gregory IX established a new branch of the Inquisition in Toulouse, France, to be led by the Dominicans, who would go on to evolve into the most zealous prosecutors of the witches in the years leading up to the Reformation. So that group becomes really significant. Most often, the records kept by the French inquisitors were impeccable, and they were a very big focus. And like when they were traveling from town to town, that was like the thing that they kept the most sacred. But the majority of the records actually didn't survive over the time. So what they were finding was that the inquisitors were widely hated, naturally, but they were very often ambushed on the road while they were traveling between towns.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, the ambushers really weren't targeting the inquisitors. They were targeting the records. Basically,
so they were trying to destroy the records.
Yeah. So they were trying to either basically force a mistrial.
Okay.
Or than anything, or at the very least, save some face. Right. At least save the reputation of the accused and potentially their, future family members and
Interesting.
their genealogy. So, most often it was the accused themselves or friends or family members of the accused wishing to sabotage the proceedings. By the time we get to the 15th century, things are really picking up speed, and there's one really significant case which is noted for the thoroughness of the surviving record, which includes the pretrial depositions and the accused's own deposition and several witnesses, which was incredibly rare. So Persona Gapit was tried for witchcraft in 1465 in Switzerland. She was accused by two witnesses of trying to kidnap an infant, causing the death of the infant by malicious magic, and preparing food that made others ill. She denied the allegations until the inquisitive vicar became involved. The inquisitor was specifically interested in the diabolical element of the crimes, and this is where we see a big shift in the idea of witchcraft. Because before it was just kind of whatever. Nobody really cared as much.
Because they didn't really believe it was a thing, right?
Right. So now that they're looking more into the diabolical element and the actual practice of collaborating with the devil, we see a big shift in what would become the modern and popular witch trials and witch hunts.
Okay.
So under a segment of questioning, Persona eventually confessed to meeting with the devil and eating the flesh of an infant at a diabolical assembly.
Oh my God.
But the kicker is the testifying witness made no such allegation.
So she just admitted to doing this without anybody.
Or was she tortured into some weird admission?
What the hell?
Right. And it says some of her confession was extracted under torture. So after the trial,
it's really a confession then.
Right. So after the trial, she was sentenced to death and burned in public.
And this
So,
was Switzerland, right?
yeah, 1465
Okay.
in Switzerland.
Okay.
So, some 20 years later, Malleus Maleficarum, which translates to Hammer of Witches, becomes the best known and most widely accepted book on witchcraft. It was written by the German Catholic clergyman Heinrich Kramer, and it was first published in 1486. Um, the top theologians of the Inquisition at the Faculty of Cologne condemned the book as recommending unethical and illegal procedures, as well as being inconsistent with Catholic doctrines of demonology.
Hmm.
So this leads us into the peak of the trials, which is between 1560 and 1630.
Well, this is worldwide trials, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're a lot. It's a lot in Europe. We don't really get to
Right.
the Americas until quite a bit later,
Right.
End of 1600s.
Right.
So we're still over in Europe.
Okay.
The peak of the trials between 1560 and 1630. The period of the European witch trials, which was the most active phase and saw the largest number of fatalities, occurred in this time frame, and it saw more than 40,000 deaths.
Wow.
So some of the really big ones were the Trier witch trials from 1581 to 1593, the Fulda witch trials from 1603 to 1606, Eichstätt witch trials from 1613 to 1630, Wurzburg witch trials from 1626 to 1631, and the Bamberg witch trials, which are the same time frame, 1626 to 1631.
Well.
So those five accounted for a large majority of those 40,000 deaths in that time frame. Over in Scotland, the North Berwick witch trials occurred in 1590, and these are particularly important because the king at the time, James VI, became involved. He had developed this insane fear that witches were planning to kill him because he suffered from storms while he was traveling to Denmark in order to claim his bride Anne earlier that year. So upon returning to Scotland, he heard that the trials were occurring in North Berwick and ordered the suspects be brought to him. And then he believed that a nobleman, Francis Stewart, was a witch, and after he fled in fear of his life, he was outlawed as a traitor. The king then set up royal commissions to hunt down witches in his realm, recommending torture in dealing with suspects. And in 1597, he wrote a book about the menace that witches pose to society entitled Demonology.
So this guy waged a war against
He was
witches because
paranoid as hell.
he ran into some bad weather on his way to
Pretty
pick up
much,
his
yeah.
wife. Wow.
Claim his wife.
Claim his
Yeah.
wife. Yeah.
So, yeah, they weren't married yet. He was going to meet her and basically take her as his bride.
Yeah, seems a little paranoid to me.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Right? So some of the most prominent in English history were the Pendle witch trials of 1612, which resulted in the hanging of 10 of the 11 who were tried at the time.
Okay.
So after this, we see the decline of the trials. From 1630 to 1750, things really start to die down and fade out. Across much of Europe, by the mid-17th century, things were really settled down, but they continued on the fringes of Europe and in the American colonies. In Nordic countries, the late 17th century saw the peak of the trials in a number of the areas. And there was the Torsäker witch trials in Sweden in 1674, where 71 people were executed for witchcraft in a single day.
Wow, they were just slaughtering people.
Yeah. Yep. And then there's also the Salzburg witch trials in Austria, where 139 people were executed over the course of 15 years. So from 1675 to 1690, there were 139 killed.
So a little more spread out there.
Yeah. I mean, still hefty numbers.
People, but
yeah.
Wow.
So then we get into 1692.
The big one. Well, our big ones.
Our big ones, right. So in 1692, the Salem witch trials were a brief outburst of witch phobia, which occurred in, the New World, so America. while practice was really waning in Europe. Um, in the 1690s, Winifred King Benham and her daughter Winifred were tried 3 separate times in Wallingford, Connecticut. The last of the trials was in New England, the last of such trials in New England. So they were kind of the tail end of it. Even though they were found innocent, they were compelled to leave, and they eventually settled in, God bless you, in Staten
Thank you.
Island. Um, Basically, they were like, you know what, no matter what, they're not going to leave us alone. By the time that you get tried a third time, I think they're like, all right, we
They're
need
hunting you for something.
right. And we'll talk about why that was such a hefty um hefty thing back then.
Yeah.
So um So, rationalist historians in the 18th century finally come to the opinion that the use of torture had resulted in erroneous testimony.
That's
go,
their opinion.
go figure.
Yeah, that's their opinion.
Yeah, opinion. Um, and in France, scholars have found that with increased fiscal capacity and a stronger central government, the witchcraft accusations began to decline.
Well, thank God the scholars found that
Go
out.
figure. Yeah. So, I mean, they were just using this as a money grab.
Yeah, and there's in our theories
Yeah.
section at the end of this, we'll get into that more.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of this was used as a big money
Yeah,
or
and as
land
soon as
grab.
things stabilize, government and fiscally, they're like, whatever. We don't
Yeah.
need to bother with Mary down the street again.
Yeah,
Like, no one cares anymore.
right.
So the witch trials that occurred were symptomatic of a weak legal system. Go figure. And witches were most likely to be tried and convicted in regions where magistrates departed from established legal statutes. You think? Right? Like, what the
All
heck?
this seems pretty obvious. Hindsight's 2020, I
Right.
suppose.
Like centuries worth of
Holy
learning and
crap.
growing. So during the early 18th century, the practice is really subsiding. Jane Wenham was among the last subjects of a typical witch trial in England in 1712, but she was pardoned after her conviction and ended up being set free,
Okay.
which was really rare. So she was convicted and then was pardoned and released.
Okay.
So typically what we would see was, they would be convicted and hanged or burned or whatever.
Right.
Damn near immediately. So the fact that she was even at a point where she was still alive to be pardoned was pretty rare and impressive. The last execution for witchcraft in England took place in 1716 when Mary Hicks and her daughter Elizabeth were hanged. And then Janet Horne was executed for witchcraft in Scotland in 1727. And then the Witchcraft Act of 1735 put an end to the traditional form of witchcraft as a legal offense in Britain.
Okay.
So then we really see things die down as they're like, okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
I
they
think it's
start
interesting when because I've come across the Witchcraft Acts in a couple different time periods, and it's pretty interesting that was even a thing.
Yeah.
Like
you would have to say, don't kill people for stuff you can't actually prove.
But just witchcraft, and I mean,
Yeah.
this neither here nor there. I guess I don't whether you believe in it or not, whether you think it's a real thing, but like obviously governments do or some governments do because they have acts against certain things to punish. And yeah, it's just interesting that it's written into law in some spaces.
Yeah, and I think it's more just to like, I think it's a checks and balances system really more than anything. Is it just like keep people from getting, a big head with a little bit of power and, letting the authority go to their head and just doing whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some instances that I'll get into that you see exactly that.
So the new act still allowed people to be accused and tried in certain situations, but it was restricted to those that pretended to be able to conjure spirits. Basically, like, your fortune tellers, crystal ball, palm readers, that kind of crap. Not that it's all crap. I'm sure there are some legitimate ones out there. But the people who were, bogus and just using it
Mm,
for money. So it was more so for people who were being fraudulent,
okay.
fraudulent fortune tellers and mediums, and the punishment was very light.
Okay.
So it's still allowed for um, not necessarily witchcraft as like a an actual accusation,
Okay.
but people who were pretending to have these powers and didn't.
Gotcha.
Um, in 1768, we see the outlawing of witch burning and torture, and the last capital trial occurred in 1750 in Salzburg, just outside of Austrian domain.
Okay.
So after this point, we see some sporadic witch hunts. Late 18th century, witchcraft really had ceased to be considered a criminal offense throughout most of Europe. But there were a number of cases that were technically not witch trials, but they're suspected to have a belief in witches kind of underlying. So they had a case in 1782 in Switzerland where this woman, Anna Goldie, was executed for poisoning her employer, but her employer believed that she had practiced witchcraft on his daughter.
Okay.
So they found a loophole, basically, more than anything.
A lot of this stuff is
Yeah.
loopholes for different things.
Yeah. There's another Barbara Zidonk in 1811 in Prussia. Again, not technically for witchcraft, but they found her guilty of arson.
Okay.
So, you know,
It's one of those.
witchcraft adjacent.
Yeah.
um,
It's one of those things.
eh,
If you can't catch them in the act, you catch them for something, and then try and link
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Right. So that's basically what they were doing was like, okay, we still believe that this is going on. We still believe that witchcraft is a thing, but
Right.
we can't really say that it is.
Right.
So what else can we hang them on?
Yeah.
So then you've got in Poland in 1783, the Dorochow witch trials were the execution of 2 women for sorcery in 1793. So despite the official end for the trials, there were occasional and unofficial witch hunts and killings in parts of Europe. So you've got Anna Clemens in Denmark in 1800, Christina Chinowa in Poland in 1836, and Dummy, the Witchcraft of Sybil Heddingham in England.
Dummy.
That's her name, Dummy, the Witch of Sybil Heddingham.
Is that actually her name, or is that just what they?
No, that's what it says. That's what it says her name is.
Wow.
I don't know her personally.
My name's Denise, but my friends call me Dummy. Sound like one of those deals?
Like an I'm with stupid t-shirt.
Yeah. Wow.
In France, they were still seeing sporadic violence, and there was even a murder in the 1830s with one woman reportedly burned in a village square. But by that time, a prosecution for witchcraft was, really, really, really rare.
Right.
But here in the United States, we saw a prosecution for witchcraft commenced against a man in Fentress County, Tennessee.
Interesting.
Conflicting reports. Some people have him named Joseph. Some people have him named William. Last name is Stout. It was based upon his alleged influence over the health of a young woman. It was dismissed upon the failure of the alleged victim, who had sworn out a warrant against him to appear for the trial.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In Tennessee, I never knew that.
Mm-hmm.
I never, and I don't know if this is just me not remembering history class. I mean, I was such a star student, but
History was not my favorite subject.
no, but we both were, I believe, fascinated by the Salem witch trials, and
I'm more fascinated by how much I clearly misunderstood.
Right. So yeah, and we'll get more into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But I don't remember anything other than Salem in the United States
Well, no, yeah.
that was brought up.
Yeah, that's why I thought that was really
Yeah, that
interesting
is
in
interesting.
Tennessee. And that's a big jump. Like, it's
Yeah.
not like it was Connecticut.
Right.
We're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's a big
Yeah.
big distance there. So we're going to jump over to Ireland. 1895, Bridget Cleary was beaten and burned to death by her husband because he suspected that fairies had taken the real Bridget and replaced her with a witch.
Damn you, Tinkerbell. Wow.
Yep.
Where did he come up with the idea of fairies? Took his wife.
I don't know.
How does it, so this dude, okay,
I don't know. I'm
so
pretty
he
sure they just
thought
have like
his,
whiskey for breakfast over there.
yeah,
He
how
probably
many
just
Guinnesses
drunk
did
off
he
his
have
ass all the
before he
time.
did this? That's interesting. That's crazy. So he believed enough in creatures like fairies to believe that his wife was stolen by them.
Mm.
That's interesting.
And replaced, like
And
not even just
replaced.
kidnapped. Like they put a whole new Bridget right in front of him.
Cyborg Bridget.
Yep.
Interesting.
Very.
Okay. Proceed.
So the killing of people who were suspected of performing malevolent sorcery against their neighbors continued into the 20th and 21st centuries. And I'm not sure if you have this bit. 1997 Russia?
I don't think I have anything about Russia. I focused more on
Do you have Tanzania?
possibly,
All
yes.
right. So I'll talk about them, and then if you have more, you can elaborate it on your section.
Yeah.
All right. So in 1997, two Russian farmers killed a woman and injured 5 members of her family because they believed that she and her relatives had used folk magic against them.
Okay. Folk magic. Is that the same as witchcraft?
Um, I think it's like a I think it's a little more loose. I don't think it's quite as like black magic. I think it might fall into like voodoo territory.
Yeah, that's I would feel
Um,
like folk because
but
folk
I don't know
stuff is
for
more
sure.
like yeah, more localized, I feel like. So maybe it's their local, I don't know, Russian magic. Is that a thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
So what I'm finding is that folk magic is basically practical in nature, meant to address the common ills of the community, heal the sick, bring
Okay.
love,
So yeah, it's
bring
community
luck.
based.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I was kind of right.
yeah, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And it has also been reported that between 2005 and 2011, more than 3,000 people were killed for allegedly being witches
Hmm.
by lynch mobs in Tanzania.
Yeah.
That's insane. Lynch mobs.
Yeah. If you think that's
10
insane, you just wait till
years
we get
ago.
to my section
Oh,
here.
I'm sure. I am sure. So, um, we're going to talk a little bit about the procedures and punishments and basically how the trials ran and what that looked like.
Hmm.
So, um, there had to be evidence, which seems like such a ridiculous thing for me to say out loud.
Hmm.
Um, so basically, it had to be relating to fact and done many years before. There was no possibility to offer an alibi as a defense because witchcraft did not require the presence of the accused at the scene. Witnesses were called to testify to motives and effects because it was believed that witnessing the invisible force of witchcraft was impossible. And half proofs were allowed, and good causes of suspicion were allowed as well. So basically,
So their proof is not actually proof at all. It's
right.
just kind of like
So their version of evidence and my version of evidence are very different.
yeah.
And,
Hmm.
it calls into question when people have, these bogus grudges against their neighbor for
Yeah.
whatever reason. Oh,
Your
John's
dog
got,
shit in my yard, so
well, yeah.
you're a witch.
Yeah, but not even just that. Like, oh, so and so's got a little more land than I do, and it's the
Hmm.
adjourning property. So let's see what we can swing.
Mm.
Right. So various acts of torture were used against the accused witches to coerce confessions and cause them to provide names of alleged co-conspirators.
Okay.
Basically, so they could get more trials, so they could get more land, so they could get more money. It was all, a money grab. Most historians agree that the majority of those persecuted in these witch trials were innocent of any involvement in devil worship.
Hmm.
Most of them.
Most of them.
I mean, you never know. There are some
Some
cuckoos.
outliers. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, There was a point in 1468 when the Pope declared witchcraft to be crimen exceptum and thereby removed all legal limits on the application of torture in cases where evidence was difficult to find. So then, that's when the torture really became the primary source of coercion and interrogation because they could.
Right.
And you had people who would do anything for the torture to end and okay, I'll just tell them anything they want to know to get them off my back. For instance, in Italy, an accused witch was deprived of sleep for periods of up to 40 hours. This technique was also used in England, but without a limitation on time. They used sexual humiliation, such as forced sitting on red-hot stools, with the claim that the accused woman would not perform sexual acts with the devil.
Right.
In most cases, those who endured the torture without confessing were released. But, I'm weak. I'm incredibly weak. I like to think...
If you make me sit on a burning hot stool, I'll tell you whatever you want to hear.
I like to think that I'm pretty strong-willed and pig-headed. And in certain cases, yes, I can be. I ain't doing that. Mm-mm.
No.
I'll tell you, don't even put me on it. You just put it in front of me, and I don't care. I'll tell you anything you want to know.
This might be me misinterpreting or misunderstanding or misremembering. But I thought, so when they were burning witches at the stake, it was something like if it was an actual witch, they wouldn't die from burning at the stake. Like, you can't kill a witch by burning them. So the way to prove that it was a witch was to set them on fire, and if they lived, it was a witch. Yeah, so you're killing the innocent person by setting them on fire anyway.
So they did that with drowning as well. So the idea was that, if they threw them in the lake with cinder block boots and they drowned, well, shit, I guess they were innocent.
Yeah.
But, the idea was that a witch would be able to save herself. So then if she saved herself, they'd kill her anyway.
Right.
Which...
Interesting.
I mean... never happened. Nobody ever pulled themselves up out of the lake. So,
that we know of. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure they would have talked about that in school. I would have remembered that one for sure. But I don't know about the burning. I don't know that I remember that specifically. But I also, I mean, there was a lot of, I think I was under the impression that burning was the primary source of torture and the primary method of execution, and apparently not a single person was burned at the stake in the United States.
And we learned about this recently. Very recently on a trip.
And we'll get into that in our theory section when we talk a little bit more about some of the things that we've learned.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. So we talk a little bit more about torture. So the use of torture is a key factor in converting the trial of one accused witch into a wider social panic, as those being tortured were more likely to accuse a wide array of other local individuals of also being witches. Basically as a way to defer the attention off of themselves and say, oh God, Mary down the street is a witch too, and go pay attention to her or whatever. So there were a variety of different punishments for those found guilty, including imprisonment, flogging, fines, exile. Non-capital punishments, especially for a first offense, were most common in England.
Okay.
Prior to 1542, most often church courts would deal with the cases in England, and sanctions were directed more to penance and atonement rather than harsh punishments and penalties. Often the guilty party was ordered to attend the parish church while wearing a white sheet and carrying a wand and swear to lead a reformed life.
Oh my God. This is like carving an A in somebody's head.
All I can think of is this scene in Game of Thrones.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame. Shame.
All I can think of is Cersei.
Oh, poor Cersei.
What?
Fuck that bitch.
Poor Cersei, my ass. She's the worst. The only The only freaking TV mom worse than her was Gemma, that lunatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. Sons of Anarchy. I wonder how the
Also,
new one is.
I named my car after her, so
The
there's that.
Mayans. Don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah. But
many of the accused and convicted faced capital punishment for witchcraft, either by burning at the stake, hanging, or beheading. And in New England, primarily, people convicted of witchcraft were hanged. That was the primary
yes.
source.
Except for there was one person who.
But he wasn't convicted. I know where you're going.
Yeah.
So the people who were convicted were hanged.
Okay. What was his deal?
He refused to make a plea.
Okay. And
So
they
couldn't
pressed him with stones.
Correct.
Right.
Do you still have that picture of all the names?
I unfortunately never took that picture. I thought I did. I looked through my phone and I thought I took that picture. I think it's on their website. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yep. Okay.
Little teaser. We have something very interesting and local to tie in with this.
And that's actually perfect. So I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Awesome. Are you okay?
You're up.
You're good on your drink.
I'm good
You don't
for
need
now,
to take a break or anything. It's a very strange episode because we don't have any snacks right now. But
We're not crunchy.
yeah, it's what it is. Okay, so that was the early modern witch hunts that Britt just talked about, and they're actually still going on today, pretty intensely. So, more modern witch hunts happen fairly regularly in Africa, Asia. They're the big ones, and then the Amazon, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. And then there's, I think you said Tanzania. So there's a couple other ones, but these are the bigger ones. So in Africa, Cameroon reestablished witchcraft accusations in courts after they gained their independence. And there was a child witchcraft scare that was running rampant in Cameroon that was peacefully resolved. This is a very strange punishment, but the children that confessed to witchcraft were forced to eat a large amounts of meat to induce a purifying vomiting spell. So they basically were just force fed meat until they threw up, and that was their way of purifying them of their evil witchcraft.
So was it undercooked meat? Did
Yeah,
they get food poisoning, or was
no,
it just
it was they were just
they
force
gorged
fed. They just
themselves?
engorged themselves with meat.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Look, if you're gonna give me anything in that amount, make it pizza
Yeah. So there's so
or
much
pasta.
belief.
Maybe garlic bread. I don't know, but not meat. I'll eat the meat, whatever. But no.
I feel like punishment would be you have to eat bowls of pasta and then drink a gallon of milk.
They don't go together.
I know.
Do not put milk at the table when I'm eating dinner.
Gross.
Don't do it.
So in Cameroon, they believed in witchcraft so much that actually in 2017, the president of Cameroon urged citizens to utilize witchcraft to combat Boko Haram, which is an Islamic terrorist group that's based in Nigeria. So he actually endorsed, if you practice witchcraft, use it against these guys, which is pretty wild. And that's as recent as
if you can't beat
2017.
them, join them, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's as recent as 2017.
I don't hate that.
No. Then there's Gambia. In May of 2008, there was reported that around 1,000 people were abducted by witch doctors that were sponsored by the Gambian government. They were taken to detention centers and forced to drink an intoxicating concoction called Kubajaro at gunpoint. And what that would do is it was borderline poison, but it was a hallucinogen as well.
Oh, good.
So they were forced to drink this, and it would basically force a confession out of them. And over the next 7 years, the Gambian president continued those hunts. The villagers experienced regular beatings, kidnappings, and forced confessions using that concoction. And then later, because they were forcing so many people to drink this stuff, and it's so bad for your body, that deaths occurred due to the beatings and side effects of drinking the concoction that actually caused kidney failure in a lot of
I was
people.
gonna say it's either cirrhosis or kidney failure,
Yeah,
one or the other. That's cool.
yeah,
Let's roofie the shit out of them
exactly.
and see what happens.
Yeah. So that was in
God, I
2008.
hate people
So
so
in
much.
Ghana, there's actually ghettos for witch hunt victims. There's 8 locations. And just to read through them, and I know I'm gonna butcher these names, but in Kukuo, there's 450 victims. Tindang, 350. Uh, Gushegu, 120. Gambaga, 80. Uh, Nabule, 55. Katinga, 40. Duabone, 10. And Bunyasi, there's only like 3 to 8, which is a really random number. But so there's actually ghettos for these people. So 5 of the 8
That's insane.
are run by quote earth priests, and I had no idea what that was.
Earth priests.
Yeah. So it's almost like a witch doctor, but they're a mediator between people and supernatural beings. And they utilize the earth and its power and like its ability to center people and stuff
So
like that
that
to be able
seems
to.
like the folk magic
Right. Yeah,
thing. Okay.
exactly. So that's what I was thinking of when.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. The fact that neither of us have sung the Witch Doctor song yet.
Oh, it's been in my head. We heard it at Hershey Park today.
We did twice.
The occasional outbreaks in Ghana, there were occasional hunts there, but they're more peaceful there. It was more like fines, occasional beatings, but it wasn't like just flat out killing
Hanging.
people. Yeah. But there was a deadly mass panic in 2008 that was due to a hysteria that was induced by none other than the media. Big surprise. I know. I
Wow. They're
know.
so pure.
I know. And listen to what this was about. So there was a story put out through the media that witches stole penises, which is why
Yo, if I was a witch, that's the first thing I'm stealing.
there was a mass panic. And basically they would like steal your penis and keep it as like a something to make
Like a voodoo
concoctions out of.
doll?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Crazy. So 14 men
No, so they
claimed
don't steal a lock of hair. They steal your whole dick
the
off.
whole dick, yeah. So 14 men went
That's
to
cold.
officials, went to the police, and claimed that sorcerers made the penises either disappear or shrink.
Oh, come
Right.
on.
I know, these poor
Listen, if
bastards.
you have a micro penis, you can't blame it on women.
So this was much of this was to extort cash from these guys. So this witch would say like, "Oh, I made your dick shrink." And then dude would be like, "Oh my God, it is smaller." And he would have to basically buy back a potion from the witch to make
So
it
he'd
bigger.
have to.
Yeah.
It's like the pills on the commercial.
Yeah. Basically. So I read that, I was like, "Oh my God, penis
That's-
theft." Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so there was a big
I've heard
outbreak.
of penis envy, but damn,
Nope,
that's
penis
a whole
theft.
new
They
level.
just would rip that thing right off or make it shrink. I don't know.
What would you do? You just woke up one morning and your penis was gone.
I don't really know.
That's wild.
I would be concerned. I'd
I
be
mean-
very concerned.
Like, what do you do? Just like wake up, like, oh, I have to pee, and then like, oh, never mind.
I don't know.
What do you? How do you even?
I have no idea.
I can't imagine what it would take to go. To
I
the
know.
police
So
and
that's
say,
where I was like, dude,
my dick evaporated.
I wouldn't. No, I still wouldn't go to the police. I would not go to the police. If my
You
dick
have
was,
to
if
do
I woke up and my
something.
dick, what?
I
What am
don't
I gonna
know.
do? She stole my dick. What are you supposed to do with that?
I don't know.
No, that's not something you go to the police about. You would get laughed out of the
But
precinct.
imagine having the power to just like, watch with this motherfucker. As soon as he falls asleep tonight, I'm voodooing that right off his face.
I don't.
Like, you know that there's a witch somewhere just cackling
Mm-hmm.
as, you know, fucking
Got your nose. Got your dick.
as, as John down the street who's been an asshole every day finally falls asleep and you're like, fuck, it's my time.
Yep.
Oh my God, the power. That's, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that was
That's
an interesting one.
hilarious. Penis,
Oh,
though.
Ghana. Um, then there was Kenya. Which has a long history of witch hunts. Mostly witches that were caught were killed by lynching,
Hmm.
and there was frequent public displays of the killings. In 2008, there was a mob, and they burned 11 people to death for witchcraft. Nigeria in 2004, or since 2004, at least 20 people were accused and killed in various ways. Um, killing it. So this is the one thing that I was thinking of when you were going through some of your things about how you said that a maybe you not found guilty. You were let off from the trial.
Pardoned?
Pardoned, yes. So
So
in
pardoned is after you're found convicted, and then like they basically say like, ah, never mind.
okay. So in
So that
Nigeria,
person was found guilty first, and then
okay,
they decided instead of executing her or putting her in
they would
jail,
just
they
do.
pardoned her.
Okay. So in Nigeria and in many of the areas that I'm talking about here, it was actually considered a form of community service to kill a witch. So there was no trial,
Well,
there was
yeah,
nothing. They would just say, "Oh, this person's practicing witchcraft," and they would just kill them.
it's like
So,
euthanizing a dog with rabies. Like,
right. It was
I'm doing you
yeah, they
I'm doing
saw
you
it
a
as a
favor.
way to neutralize the source of danger to their community. So they would just kill them with no trial or anything. They wouldn't go to authorities, they would just take it into their own hands.
Oi,
So that's how a lot of these numbers, the record keeping is difficult with the more modern stuff because a lot of it is just they just go out and kill them. There's no trial
well,
or
yeah, I
anything.
can imagine that
Right,
leaving a paper trail when you're a freaking
right,
skin and bones
right.
is
So
probably
I
hard.
do have Tanzania in here, um, but I don't believe it is what you talked about. So, uh,
No, it's not.
but Tanzania is some of the most intense witch hunts in
Yep.
Africa. And it's estimated that in the past 20 years that there were 20,000 people brought to death.
Phew.
93% of the population believes in magic and witchcraft, and they also have a strong belief in witch doctors. So they believe in both sides of it. They believe that there's healers of witchcraft, and there's the people who are causing harm to the communities.
Well, I mean, I think that there's something to be said for that in everything.
Right,
There's good and bad in all
right. But
walks of
witch
life.
doctors are like in the early days of witchcraft, it seemed like any form of witchcraft was evil, whether they were using it for good or bad.
Okay.
But in Tanzania, there's actually 100,000 registered witch doctors who use witchcraft in the healthcare system and their protocols of the healthcare system, which is kind of cool.
That's neat.
Yeah. So they believe in both sides of it.
I'd be very interested to see what that looks like.
I feel like that's a lot of
Like
like we
holistic
see,
medicine
yeah,
and stuff.
holistic medicine, herbal
Yeah.
healings, and
I mean,
stuff
there's
like that.
definitely like Western medicine and then like Eastern
Right. So there's probably a lot more of that
practices.
within the healthcare protocol. But
I
um,
don't hate it.
yeah. So then there's the black magic and witchcraft, and that's what's feared because there
Mm-mm.
were abductions and killings and things like that. Uh, but they would keep body parts as magic charms, and that's part of where the penis theft comes in. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's like a rabbit foot,
right,
but you know,
right.
the exact
And
opposite.
one of their specific targets was an albino group of people, like the albino people. They would target that because
And
it's rare, especially then, and they would take
it's like
body. They would
having a white rabbit's foot. You have
basically they
a
would
pure
kill them and
white
just like
dick.
keep fingers and stuff like
You
that. And
cannot be serious.
yeah,
These
it's pretty
people.
crazy.
Oh my god. I also like 93% of the population believing in magic and witchcraft is
Hmm.
wild.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty neat.
I'd be interested to see what that percentage is here in America.
I don't know. Probably not much.
Not 93.
Probably not much.
I think you'd get more than
Probably more than you would think. I'm sure down like the Louisiana area where like
oh yeah,
yeah, you get a ton of it down there. But
skeleton key.
yeah. And there's Asia, which is another big one. In India, a estimate from 2010 says that between 150 and 200 women are killed every year as witches. Uh, and
Oh my God.
it's mostly widows and divorcees who are targeted, and that's basically to
Because they
rob
have
them
property.
of their property and
Jesus.
belongings. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's always a money grab.
right, they would inherit the properties of their husbands, and then they would be declared a witch, and the government would get that property then
Yeah.
if they were killed or
Because who are they
yeah,
going to leave it to?
exactly.
They don't have a husband.
Um, witch
Oy.
doctors were paid out to specific people as witches. Sorry, they were paid to out specific people as witches. So
Yeah.
they would get bribes basically to have the witch doctor say, "Oh, well, this person's practicing witchcraft in an evil manner," and then they would be killed without repercussions. Uh, Lynching is one of the more popular methods there. There were some other ones as well, but that was the most popular one. In 2013, a couple was hacked to death by a group of people for practicing black magic, so that's nice.
Hacked?
Yeah, like
Like with a machete?
yeah, machete, axe, yeah, something like that. It was just a group of people went out.
Jesus. This
Yeah,
should have been in our episode last week.
yeah.
Holy crap.
And then also in 2013, a mother and her daughter were murdered on the allegation that they were practicing black magic. So that's another one that was probably some sort of money grab, property grab thing like that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what that story is a little bit
Yeah.
more.
So this next one, Papua New Guinea, white magic is legal,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
like the good side of
That's,
it.
yeah.
So this is what I was saying about the different acts that were imposed by the government. 1976 Sorcery Act imposes a penalty of 2 years in prison for black magic. Um, there's
That
about
seems light.
yeah,
2 years?
yeah.
I
That's it.
mean, it's a
I
hell
guess
of a
it
lot
depends
better
on
than
what you
getting
do with the
hanged.
black magic. I mean, if you kill somebody with it, I'm
Listen,
sure
if I got that power, everybody's going down.
you're stealing
I
dicks all day.
No, I don't want that. I don't want this. You hanging on the fucking wall like moose heads and shit. No, thank you. No, what am I gonna do with that?
I don't know. I
No,
don't know.
no, I'm fucking with everybody though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't do like the whole black magic thing, but like I would definitely make a voodoo doll and just like
Well, voodoo is different than witchcraft, though, isn't it?
no, not. I mean, not really. It just has
That's
different.
probably more folk magic.
No,
No?
no, voodoo's bad shit.
No, I know, but it's more localized.
Voodoo has very strong ties to like Louisiana
Yeah.
and uh like New Orleans,
Yeah.
but
Nolans. Nola, right?
yeah, but it's not. I mean, that's not all.
Right.
But I mean, New Orleans in itself is very much a melting pot. You know,
Yeah,
you've got
that's
French
true.
influence,
So maybe it's more. Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to look
you've
at
got
that because I'm not sure.
island influence. There's a
Yeah.
whole hodgepodge of stuff
Yeah.
happening.
But Papua New Guinea has about 400 cases of violence against witchcraft or people practicing black magic every year. And there's actually witch hunts that have turned more sadistic in some areas. So a woman was attacked by a group of young men from a village just for assuming or thinking that she was practicing witchcraft. And she had her genitals burned and fused beyond functional repair by repeated intrusions of red hot irons.
Oh my god,
Yeah, so that's kind of along when you said
the hot
the hot
stools.
stool, I was thinking like along the lines of this as like
I
the
mean, given a choice, I'd sit on a hot stool
oh God, yeah,
before that.
yeah,
Burn? What did you say? Burn beyond functional
repair,
repair? Jesus.
yeah. Few
Oh,
incidents
that's
are ever
horrible.
reported of this, but
I mean, I ain't gonna tell people that.
they've increased since 1980s apparently in
Hmm.
Papua New Guinea because people are just taking it into their own hands. The vigilantes. Um, Saudi Arabia, it's a criminal offense, as many other places. 2009, 118 people were arrested, and 74% of them were female.
Female.
Of
Of course
course.
they were.
Of course they were. In 2006, a woman was sentenced to death by beheading after being beaten and forced into a false confession.
Oh my God.
The all because apparently she cast an impotence spell. So
Listen,
dude
you ain't
couldn't.
really blaming a woman for the fact that you can't get it up. Come
That's what
on,
he said.
dude.
That's what he said.
Oh God.
Excuse me. That's what he said. I don't know.
Cast an impotence spell.
Yeah.
I feel like for a lot of it, like all you'd have to do is make them think that you casted an impotence spell, and then they'd be so fucking hung up on
Right.
the idea that they wouldn't be
Probably.
able to perform that they would sabotage themselves.
Probably.
You men are weak minded.
Shh. You don't know the half of it. Oh shit.
I don't know the half of how weak minded men are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um.
Give me my 104-year-old lady over any dude.
Yeah.
Any one of my patients. I'll take a woman over a man any day.
Okay, that's fair. 2007, an Egyptian national was executed after being convicted of using sorcery, adultery, and desecrating the Quran. Probably more to do with the other two than sorcery, but
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think those three things are
yeah,
related to each
those
other.
were the convictions that he had.
He's
Though.
just a shitty person, and we're
I
just
guess.
lumping all of it together.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, it's fine. Whatever.
Another one in 2007 was a Sudanese national who was sentenced to death for producing a spell that would lead to the reconciliation of a divorced couple. So like he was trying something good,
Who the fuck cares?
he used witchcraft. It's against the law. It's a criminal offense.
Oh my God. Listen.
It's a criminal offense.
Who the fuck cares?
It's a criminal offense.
This is why I don't get involved in other people's shit.
I agree
Like,
with
your
you.
relationship is
The
your relationship. I
law
don't want
is
to
the
fucking
law.
know.
Don't fuck with the law. 2009, a Lebanese television presenter was sentenced to death arising from fortune telling. How fucked up is that? Like, what if this person was like their meteorologist, and like they were just accurate all the
The
time. They
only
were
one
like
that
the
actually got it
only
right.
really good meteorologist, and they're like, no, you're telling
Yeah.
fortunes now. You just fucking you can see into the future.
No, but
Your
they'll
wish.
believe a fucking groundhog over that person any
right.
day.
Yeah, I wonder what they
My
think
running
it is.
joke is I wish I could be wrong at my job as much as a meteorologist and still have a
Yep.
fucking job.
Yep. Sorry, it's the truth.
Wow.
And then in 2011, there were two separate instances of a man and a woman being sentenced.
Executed? Okay.
Yeah. So
Damn.
I came across
intense.
an article. Do you need another drink? I have more over
Yeah,
here.
I'll
If you
take another.
if you want to do that, so you
Yeah.
want to take a quick break?
Sure.
All right, take a quick break.
That'll
We will
work.
be right back. And we're back, just like that. Look at that. Witch's potion. My dick's still there. I guess we're good.
Drunk witch.
Yeah, but it looks like witch's potion. That's what it should be called. It is. Isn't that the name of the other one that we were looking at anyway? I don't know, something like that. Whatever. All right, so we went over the history. We were getting into myths and misconceptions, and we touched on a couple of them already. The first and foremost one really was that witches were burned at the stake. I feel like I was taught that in school in the context of this happened in Salem. And I feel like I need to go back and like check my history books.
You don't
because-
have history books
fuck
anymore.
no. I burned them with the witches.
I definitely don't have mine.
No, God, no.
I have my college, like my grad school textbooks still, but nothing other than that.
Hearing a sound. Trying to figure out what it is. Probably my ghetto refrigerator.
I was going to say it sounds like a refrigerator running.
All right.
Buzz.
Anyway, yeah, so that's the first one. So again, that was not in English-speaking countries. Most of them were hanged. The majority of them were hanged here in the United States. Scotland did burn the bodies of witches, but they were strangled to death first. So you know what? I mean, it's a little
That
easier, I guess.
seems
I
very labor intensive.
I agree. I guess
That's not an efficient way to
this is gonna spill.
execute somebody. Like, I don't know if you're a serial killer and you want to strangle people, sure, whatever. But like, in terms of trials and I don't know, it
I
just
think it's
doesn't
real
seem.
strange. Yeah, I think it's really strange.
That's very like hanging. Sure, I guess
Well,
technically
I
you
guess
kind of
it's. I mean,
strangled to some extent, but like,
it's probably a cleansing thing, like as far as burn the body to get rid of.
the burning is one thing. I'm talking about strangling a convicted witch
Mm,
to death. There, like that. Who's being
yeah. Okay, I see what you mean.
whose job is it to strangle people to death?
Not mine.
That seems like that takes a long time
I would think so. I mean, I don't know. I've never
and a
done it.
lot of effort.
Yeah, I
So
could
I've
see that
heard.
being kind of a interesting one.
I wouldn't know.
Um,
I wouldn't know for sure, but I've heard.
another
Dude, this
myth.
drink is good.
This drink is really good.
I don't know. This is probably one of the first times that you and I
It's
actually
actually really
both
good.
really
'Cause
like a drink.
yeah, it tastes like candy. It tastes like an ice pop.
It really does. It tastes like a melted purple
Purple.
freeze pop.
Yep.
It's
Highly
good stuff.
recommend. Highly recommend. Check it out. We'll put the link down below, wherever. I don't know. It'll be somewhere. Maybe here. Maybe there.
Oh my god, you're such a dork.
I know. The second myth or misconception was that once accused, a witch had no chance of proving her innocence, but only 25% of those who were tried in England were actually found guilty and executed.
Really?
Yeah. They were just like throwing everybody at it, and those high numbers of people being executed was just a fraction of actually who was convicted or who was brought to trial.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I wonder like how they found people innocent. Like what was their criteria for innocent versus guilty? Because it seems like everything was very willy-nilly.
It was, but that leads it into what I said earlier of even if they were found innocent by the court system or whatever, the legal system, the townspeople would kill them
Oh yeah, I
to
mean
get rid of the
you're a
witchcraft. So,
pariah at that
yeah.
point. There's no coming back from that. Your reputation is
Yeah,
garbage.
so the townspeople would kill them anyway. So even if you were innocent, you were still dead, essentially.
Yeah.
The third one is the Spanish Inquisition and the Catholic Church instigated the witch trials. And you talked a little bit about the Catholic Church um, and the beginnings of the witch trials. All four Western Christian denominations persecuted witches. That's Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Calvinist, and Anglican. The Spanish Inquisition executed only two. So,
So I mean again, this goes back to the fact that I paid absolute zero attention in history class.
mm,
What was the Spanish Inquisition for then? Because I always thought that it was.
maybe this. I don't know the answer to that. That was in the early stuff, and I didn't actually pay attention to that because of the way that we split up
That's fine.
the timeline on
No,
it.
no, no, that's fine.
But I saw this.
And I didn't get that heavily into it, I guess, because
You were
it
talking about the
didn't.
French Inquisition,
Well, and the
but
Spanish Inquisition didn't come up much in my research because
right,
there was
not much in
not
there.
the
Yeah,
witch
so that could be what it was put in place for,
correlation.
but they just didn't find that. Maybe they were letting people off easy. I don't know.
So they were. It was intended to identify heretics among those who converted from Judaism and Islam to Catholicism.
Okay. All right, so maybe they were focused on the comparison of religions instead of, and only found a couple witches in there.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I
Um,
apologize to all my history teachers. I don't even remember your names, let alone what you taught me. I could probably name one of my history teachers, honestly.
Really?
If I really thought hard, I could go back, but like a lot of my teachers taught like multiple classes, so like I remember them for something other than
Okay,
history.
gotcha. All right. The fourth
Oh
one,
God.
the fourth myth and misconception is that witch hunting was really, quote, women hunting, since most witches are women. And that's true for England. The majority in England were women, but in other countries, men were actually the majority.
Really?
Yeah, specifically in Scandinavian countries. And in
Well,
Europe, there were like 10 to 15% were men.
that's pretty standard.
Yeah, but
Because I think I said the majority. I think like 80% were
right,
women,
right,
and most of them were over the age of 40.
right. And then in Europe, in
Which again
England,
goes into the divorcees and
right,
the widows.
exactly. So in England, most of the accusers and those making written complaints against witches were other women.
Because women are bitches.
So it basically boiled down to,
If you ain't a witch, you a bitch.
yeah,
That's all
essentially,
I'm saying.
they would find women who were attractive or that they thought their husband might be drawn to, and they would accuse them of being a witch to try and get rid of them, essentially.
Oh my god.
Yeah, heady little bitches.
I have no tolerance for. I don't. I don't have any tolerance for the
You'd be
vast
flaunting
majority
that
of
shit.
women.
Like what was that show you were watching about the witches, the Salem?
Salem.
What was it? Is it just Salem? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
And they
the
just
chick
walking
that
around
you like
flaunting the
from
shit.
New Amsterdam is on it.
Love her. Love her.
I forget her name.
Yeah.
Shane
So
West is in it. It's a good show. It got very, very, very weird, very fast.
well, it's witches. What
But
do
it
you
was
expect?
yeah. I don't. The first season was not as crazy, and then it got weird. But I sort of stopped watching it. But no, it was called. It was. I think it was just called Salem.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was called
Yeah.
Salem.
Okay. All right. And then that is it for the myths and misconceptions. So we're gonna get into thoughts and theories, but first,
Your girl's name is Janet Montgomery. BT dubs.
Janet Montgomery. Okay.
And
Love her.
Shane West is also in the show, who I love.
Okay.
That's all. Go ahead. Sorry.
So before we get into our thoughts and comments and theories about the witch trials, the local link that we alluded to earlier, we were up in Bethlehem, Allentown. Was it in Bethlehem or Allentown?
Bethlehem.
Probably says it right here on the bottle.
It's Allentown.
Okay.
That we were staying in
Oh, right.
Bethlehem, but we
So-
went to Allentown.
Gallows Hill Spirits or Gallows Hill
Yep, that's right.
Distillery in Allentown. We went there, and the history there is amazing. So basically, the owner is a direct descendant of the soothsayer of Andover, who was a witch that was hanged on Gallows Hill in 1692 in Salem.
Was he actually a witch?
Well,
He was convicted.
he was
as a
convicted
witch.
as a witch.
Yes.
So,
His name was Samuel Wardwell.
yeah. And this is the picture we were talking about. He has the whole lineage on the wall of the distillery. The distillery looks like the witch house that's in Salem. The atmosphere is amazing. He's the nicest guy. And what we did was
He's so cool, so knowledgeable.
we did a tasting of all of their alcohol, and then we did a distillery tour.
Yeah.
And
They have it on Groupon. We'll include the Groupon link if
it's still there.
If the thing is still active. So
if not, you can go directly.
you
on
can
the
go
website
anyway.
and see
It's
it.
awesome.
Yeah, but
you should.
The first probably half hour, 40 minutes was the history of his family and Salem and the witch trials, and it was so interesting. And that is where we learned that no witches in the U.S. were burned;
Yep.
they were hanged. So it's a really, really cool story. His name was Robert. Bob, yeah,
Who?
the owner.
The founder?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, the owner of it, but it's all the one thing that we love is local
Yeah,
stuff.
Bob Piano.
Yeah, the one thing we love is local stuff, and he put his own blood, sweat, and tears into this place. Him and his friends built the distillery.
Yep.
It's awesome. It's a really cool atmosphere. You need to check it out. So what we did, and actually the day we were there for our tasting, they had just bottled their whiskey, and this was the first, I think the first whiskey they did. I could be wrong on
I
that.
think you're right. No, I think you're
But they
right.
had just bottled their whiskey, so we got to taste it. It was awesome. Um,
And the gentleman that we were talking about earlier, so the last person to be executed, or
hmm
the last person to die during the Salem witch trials, was a gentleman named Giles Corey.
Yes.
And his story is that so he was accused of witchcraft. He was a farmer, and he was accused along with his wife. And when he was arrested, he refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty
hmm
because he knew that they couldn't move forward with trial
Right.
without a plea. And he was like, I'm not going to give them an out because if I plead guilty, they're automatically going to kill me.
Right.
If I plead not guilty and then they find me guilty, they're going to kill me anyway.
Right.
So they basically they pressed him to death with stones. They put a wooden plank over top of his body, laid him down in basically a 6-foot grave,
hmm And
and
just
then
started piling
pressed him
stones
with
on.
stones. And they, every day, I think it was 3 days worth of torture. And, after each stone was laid, they would ask him, are you ready to enter a plea now? And he would say no. And they would put more stones on him. And the very, very last thing that he said was more weight
hmm
or more rocks.
More weight.
There's
I
well,
believe, yeah.
there's conflicting
Right.
whatever. So it's
But he
either
asked for. He basically said, "Bring it on, bitch."
yeah.
I'm not.
So
Yeah.
he was asked 3 times to enter a plea, but each time he replied more weight.
hmm
And occasionally, Sheriff George Corwin would even stand on the stones himself.
Good guy. Asshole.
During the pressing, his tongue was pressed out of his mouth. The sheriff with his cane would force it back in again. And there's several accounts of his last words. Most commonly, it's that he requested more weight,
Right.
but it may have also been more rocks.
Right.
Um,
So
yeah.
you'll learn a lot about the history if you go. When you go.
But the cool thing about him and the reason that he's my new hero is since he refused to plea and he died in full possession of his estate,
hmm
which would otherwise have been forfeited to the government, it passed on to his 2 sons-in-law in accordance to his will.
Right.
So he was able to actually keep
Right.
all of his possessions and all of his
Mm-hmm.
land
Pretty
and
amazing.
his farm, which
Yeah.
was the most
Smart
important
guy.
part.
Because he knew it was coming and he signed it over to his son. Was basically what happened, right?
That was Sam Wardwell.
Oh, and that's yeah. So that's the descendant of the owner of the distillery.
Yeah. Which is another awesome story, but
The whole thing is
Bob
so
tells it better
cool.
than we could
Yeah,
ever do.
you
So
need to go.
do
You
yourself
need
a
to go.
favor, go visit. If you're local, it's so worth it.
We'll tag their Instagram
Yes,
in this as
absolutely,
well.
and I'll include the link for their Groupon if it's still active, and I'll include the link for their website
yeah.
otherwise.
So what we did when we were there, their alcohol was all good, but
Yes.
one thing that we've
So
never
good.
had in the house was orangello, and this is from the distillery. It's made from Soothsayer vodka, which is their vodka, Valencia orange peel,
Yum.
Morena sugar, and spring water. So I just took the.
We just cracked the seal.
I just
We
took
haven't
the
even opened it
plastic
yet.
off of this.
We tried this on our tasting. This was part of what we tried, and we fell in love. We've had limoncello before. We've had other alcohols, but the orangello was definitely something that was new to us. So once we tasted it, we both were kind of immediately in love, and we decided it had to come home with us. So here we go. Listen to that pour. Goop, 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 goop. So a super special double toast.
Yeah.
Both very witch related, which is like
Put that right
unheard
there in
of.
the middle.
At least it's not a concert leftovers again.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Sorry for the Flyers glass.
It's
We're fans, but they suck this year.
well, it's orange.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's
guess.
okay.
All right, so I forget what this tastes like.
It's a Gallows
Smells
Hill.
amazing. Oh, it's so good.
Oh, it's delicious.
The aftertaste is amazing.
It's so
It tastes good
good
going down, but the
It's
aftertaste
really
is so good.
smooth. And I normally am not
It's like juice.
yeah. Well, no, it does taste. It tastes like alcohol, but it's a really like enjoyable
Yeah,
taste. And normally I'm not like anything like I will not drink straight anything ever
right.
for probably as long as I live.
It's delicious.
But this is
So sweet.
so
It's really
worth it.
good.
It's fantastic.
So that's our
But it's
local
not
link.
overly sweet
No,
either.
no, no,
I
it's not
think
overly sweet.
the orange taste in it is so
It's
good. It's a
good.
little
Yeah.
tangy. It's
It
a
tastes like
little.
a fresh orange. Like
It
it
does.
doesn't.
It
Yeah,
tastes
it's not
like
like that
biting
fake
into an
orange
orange.
taste.
It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's really good.
It's definitely not that artificial
No,
crap.
no, like
It's real.
like dollar store dish soap.
That's disgusting, but
Yeah,
that's so right.
yeah. But this
Ew.
stuff is good. So get there and get yourself some. But anyway, on to
Yes.
that's our local link for this one. Um, so on to the thoughts and theories and comments about the witch trials. Did you have? I know I have a couple on the outline. I don't see any of yours. I don't know if you have something mentally noted here. But did you have anything like what's your take on the witch trials and still the witch stuff happening today? And do you have any theories about any of it?
So a couple of things, and we sort of talked about this when we did the Gallows Hill um, tour. So number one, we both were like floored to find out that nobody was burned at the stake here.
Yeah.
Like I still am not totally sure because this is again one of those weird Mandela effects for me because I'm like I know that I was told that at some
Yeah.
point. Um that and for whatever reason I thought that there were a shitload more people. Like I
Yeah.
thought that it was like they made it out to be such a huge part of our history
Mm-hmm.
that I thought it was like years on end.
13 months, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was November of 1692, I think, to December of
1693.
1693.
Yep.
I think. Don't hold me to those
No, you're
dates.
right.
I don't know for sure if
You're
that's
right.
correct. Um,
Confirmed.
you did confirm it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I
Is that
found in
what you
my,
have?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the the timeline and the amount of people that were actually convicted was so much shorter and lower
Yeah.
than what I thought it was. Like in my head, I thought that it was this
I thought it
huge.
was like the civil war against
Right.
witches,
So
basically.
I thought that it was just like this mass exodus of
Right.
just like wipe the slate clean, kill them all.
Yeah.
So I was really floored to find out both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, um, finding out how widespread it was and how like we were kind of like
On
bottom of
the
the
ass end of it.
totem.
Yeah.
Right, we were like way late to the party.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't forget us.
yeah, like oh, we can't be left out. We
Yeah.
got to jump in here.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a surprise
Mm-hmm.
for me.
I'd
And
agree.
I thought that it was way more. I just thought that there was more to it. And a lot of the people who died during the Salem witch trials, like some of them died in prison awaiting trial.
Right.
Some of them died from like hypothermia and pneumonia
Yeah.
while in prison because the conditions were, I mean, obviously
Horrendous.
beautiful conditions in
Horrendous.
prison
Yeah.
in 1692
Yeah.
in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
One of the people who died was an infant daughter of
Yeah.
one of the other people who was confused or was
Convicted.
convicted or not convicted,
yeah,
accused, and the father was not in the picture, so the baby was in prison with her.
Right.
The amount of omissions, I guess, in my
Mm-hmm.
education was flooring. So yeah, that definitely surprised me, and like getting into this and realizing how widespread it was, and again, thinking that the Catholic Church was kind of like spearheading all of this, but then finding out that they were like, yeah, witchcraft is garbage. You guys are crazy. It's, it's all superstition. Shut up. Was surprising to me too. So, I mean, I think that there are people who are more tapped into certain abilities than others. So I don't know if
Agreed.
I believe in witches to the same extent that like what you see in movies and TV, but I think that there's some truth to it. I think it's very um I think it's a bit exaggerated and, romanticized, I guess would be the
Yeah,
best
that's the
word,
word.
but I think it exists. I think that there's definitely some truth to it, but I'm happy to see that there are some parts of the world that are using it
For
for
good.
good.
It was really neat
Um,
when I saw that about the healthcare. I thought you would think that was neat.
of course I
Yeah.
do. But I'm
So,
going to look into this white magic
yeah.
situation a little bit more. But I'm getting very Star Wars.
Yeah,
The use
right.
of
The
the force.
force. Yeah, the use of the force.
I'm
Um,
getting some Star Wars vibes here.
so I agree that my memory obviously serves that I thought it was much more widespread. I thought
Hmm.
there were people burned at the stake. Like in my mind, I'm envisioning just like bonfires of bodies of
Yeah.
people just all
I mean,
over
I
the
thought that they
place.
were all just like teetered up against each other and just
Yeah,
lit on
and that's
fire.
not at all what it was. And then the other thought is that the whole thing was a money grab, and you'll if you go to Gallows Hill, you'll see some of the
Yeah.
um,
You'll see some of
evidence
the
of
background
that.
of some of the stories and some of the
Yeah,
trials. And
but a lot of it was just a money grab and a land grab from the government. So I came
there's
across this.
definitely a pattern and a
Yeah,
theme in a lot of the things that Bob will tell you at
yeah,
the tour.
yeah. Maybe I mean maybe if we do something in the future, maybe we can even have him on. I don't know. Maybe we could do like a mobile podcast and go up there and talk to him.
Oh, that would be neat.
Yeah.
Well,
See if
Maggie and Jody were just talking about maybe doing that
yeah.
again, and maybe we'll all
Yeah,
go.
so maybe
That'd be
we could
cool.
do that. We'll look into that. But I came across this theory and I don't read through it.
I'm not.
So
I'm looking for the Groupon, so
there's this
you're great.
theory that the Salem trials were basically caused by a form of mass hysteria. So the trials, the
I mean,
theory,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
but the theory goes that the trials started from a rye grain that was spoiled by a fungus called ergo, er, ergot, I guess. Um, Historians claim that the perfect conditions for ergot to thrive were in the year before the panic in Salem. And those
Hmm.
perfect conditions are a severe winter and a damp spring, which they had the
It's
year before the
ergot.
trial. Ergot?
Ergot.
Okay. So the theory is that the infected rye was harvested for consumption and the whole town was affected by it.
Well, yeah,
Sim-
because if you're drinking whiskey or eating bread, it's coming to you.
exactly. So the symptoms of ergotism are severe convulsions, muscle spasms, sensation of crawling under the skin,
Blech.
gangrene of extremities, and severe hallucinations similar to LSD.
Oh shit.
So the symptoms of this ergotism are the same as many of the accused in Salem.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and it was mostly young women because they didn't have completely developed immune systems to be able to fight off the ergotism or the symptoms of it, I guess. And then the abrupt end to it in 1963 is just simply because they
It got
consumed the
out of their
contaminated
system.
grain and it was gone. So I thought
Huh.
that was really interesting that this all was it could have just been basically hallucinations. Like they were thinking these people were performing witchcraft or whatever, and it was all just they were messed up from this ergotism, which was
It
pretty
makes
interesting, I
sense.
thought.
I also think it's really interesting that like the symptoms and the explanation for
Mm-hmm.
it are very similar to the punishment in Gambia. Was that the Kubaharo?
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. What drinking the?
Yeah, like the drinking the Kubaharo made the hallucinations and made them weak, unconscious, and
Hmm.
very visibly ill.
That's true.
And
I guess they could have
the
used that to
treatment
try to.
or the punishment is damn near the exact same thing that may have caused us all in the first place.
Hmm.
But so what I find interesting and what would be confusing to me then is like we talked about, Salem was kind of the tail end of, or it came to the Americas very late in the game.
Yeah.
So how would you explain the mass hysteria in other parts of the world
I
on that regard?
Other parts of the world I don't know.
Okay,
This is the
that
rye
the rye was
theory.
primarily in Salem.
Yeah, because this is the only spot in the U.S. where this really happened.
Okay.
So the theory was, I mean, since it was so localized and concentrated, and even the span of time, it was just such a tight happening that like the stuff in the rest of the world, sure that could have just been slowly spreading mass hysteria,
Yeah.
whatever. But the jump over the pond was caused by this
Hmm.
ergotism.
It's just kind of like this weird little catalyst, and everyone was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
something they leave out of the history books.
Oh, they leave lots out of the history
No, they
books.
don't. What are you talking about?
It's gonna be more
They
and
tell us
more every
everything.
year.
They teach us all about it.
Uh, Anyhow,
Anyway, so I
check
know
out
this
our
is.
link tree.
Well, wait, hold on.
All
I
right.
need to make a public apology
Uh oh.
for you.
For me.
Yeah, because the last episode, you said that our next episode is going to be the Warrens, and I jumped in on it and
Oh
agreed.
yeah.
And
We started the research and we realized that the Warrens, it was just
we need
there's
two
too much.
episodes.
We need 2 episodes. And we're not gonna half-ass it because that's not fair to you guys, and it's honestly not fair to us. 'Cause, like,
And we don't
I
want to
really
leave
want to do it.
you a week between. So we don't want to put out a Warren episode on a
Yeah, we don't
Tuesday and
want to
wait a
half
whole
it.
week for another one.
Yeah.
So what our plan is we are putting out our Warren episode
On Halloween,
on
baby.
Halloween is the first Warren episode, and the next day, which is our regular
Our typical
Tuesday,
Truth
November
Tuesday.
1st, right? November
Yep.
1st, yeah, will be our
The
the
Warren
second
part B.
portion of the
Yep.
Warrens. That way we can give it all to you in 2 days back to back instead of making you wait a week.
Yep.
So apologies for the change in schedule,
But it's for the best,
it's for the best.
truthfully.
Yeah.
But I mean, in that respect, you want to talk about what the rest of October holds?
I forget about our next episode. What's our next episode?
Our next episode, we are going to talk about movies and TV show
Yes.
sets that were cursed.
Yeah.
So, people that died, people that had similar, symptoms or illnesses, or were diagnosed with similar things,
Mhm.
later in life. But movies and TV shows for that, and then we're gonna do. I just had a brain fart. I don't remember.
I heard it. I heard it. We have a gap there. So we got to figure out what our one on the so that one's coming out the 18th.
So yeah, that'll be
Um,
the 18th.
And then we
And
have
then
to
the
figure out what we're doing on the
25th.
25th. If you have any suggestions, let us know.
No, we just talked about this last night.
We did.
We did. Hold up.
I'm tired. Like I said, we're working on
We
very
had a
little
hell of a
sleep here.
weekend.
It's been rough. It's been rough. I forget what we said we were gonna do, but that's all right. We're good. This was actually a decently timed episode, which I'm happy about. Let's see real quick if we can look through the.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Are we jumping in with Skinwalker Ranch?
That was one of the plans. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
Maybe it's potential. That's potential because that's a big one too. I don't know. You'll find out on the 25th. Maybe we'll let you know on the 18th. Is that?
But we did have a request for a couple of episodes, some new ideas,
Yeah. And
things
actually,
that were not already part of our list. So we're super excited for those. And
Yes.
we'll be adding those in.
I should
Thank
have
you,
done this in the
Maggie.
beginning. thank you so much for all of our new followers and listeners.
Yes.
We got a
Yeah,
ton this
we've
past
like
week,
blown up in the past week. It's
which
been
has been
exciting.
awesome. So thank you guys so much. And I really should have put this first. Thank you guys so much because it makes a difference. I mean, it's really cool to see that number ticking up.
Yeah.
Followers on the Instagram, followers on the YouTube stuff and Spotify, and the
Yep.
listens on the Spotify. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. But the one thing is, reach out to us. Please reach out to us. Let us know what you're thinking of these.
Just say
Um,
hi.
yeah,
It
say
doesn't
hi.
have
Shoot
to
us a
be
text.
anything
Say
specific.
hi.
Just,
Say what's up.
hey, we're listening.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't matter if we don't know you.
we'll give you a shout out.
We'll learn to know you.
Yeah, we'll give you a shout
Um,
out. But
yeah.
I guess let's kill it for this episode.
Yeah.
I think we're approaching that time limit, and make sure you check us out on what? Look at our link tree.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll have the
Um,
link tree in the description. That'll include our Instagram, our email, YouTube,
everything.
phone number, Spotify. We're on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify. What else?
Anchor,
Anchor.
Amazon Music,
Oh yeah, Amazon Music. I forgot about that.
Facebook,
Yep, we've
YouTube.
got a Facebook page, a YouTube page, an Instagram page.
Yeah. So
Email
don't forget
is
to like, follow, subscribe. That way you get all the updates on everything. The big thing is our Instagram because we're letting you know, and our Facebook because you're letting. The nice thing about Instagram is we can just kind of shoot out little pictures. The nice thing about Facebook is you can watch the video right through it, basically.
Yep.
So, yeah, check us out on all of those. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we will see you on the next one.
Yep.
So, you want to raise your witch's brew, or are we
Sure.
doing your?
No, we can do that.
Let's go local.
All right.
Little orange cello from Gallows Hill.
Gallows Hill.
A toast to
The Atypical.
Atypical.